Welcome, welcome. This is the Enlightenment Show, and I'm your host, Laurie Schoenfeld. This is where Chicken Soup for the Soul meets the artist way with Nancy Drew. Our guest today is Jennifer Cramer Miller, author of The Incurable Optimist. We're going to be chatting with her today all about her new release and how she's forging a path to joy. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, Lori. What a pleasure to be with you today.
Welcome, welcome. It is absolutely a pleasure to be with you as well.
Thank you.
It is almost October, Jennifer. Is there something that you love to do during this time and season?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm in Minnesota and we have had a hot summer. We've had a crazy string of a lot of 90-degree days. So I kind of enjoy the cooling down of the temperature, and it's just so fun to just walk out the door with a light jacket and feel that crisp air. So I like the change, and I like apple orchards. I think those are kind of a fall fun thing to do.
Ooh, yes. They got a whole vibe and just energy there for
Yeah.
sure.
It just kind of gets you into the transition that, okay, we're in this in between. We're in between summer and winter. Let's just savor some of the good stuff.
Now, do you, Jennifer, when you go to apple orchards, do you enjoy the environment? Do you like to pick the apples and come home and bake some apple delights?
Yeah, I always like to get some apples. And my goal is always to bake some beautiful apple pie, but I don't always succeed in that. Sometimes we just eat the apples, and that dream of that pie just is a dream. Yeah. But the apples are
Mhm.
good on their own. You can always have some good crunchy apples.
I like that essence of it can be a dream, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, as is life, you know.
Well, because sometimes there's fun in just the dream, even if it doesn't materialize. Having it and holding on to it can be fun in itself.
Ooh, yes, yes. Can you share with our listeners and viewers what Incurable Optimist is all about?
Of course. So, Incurable Optimist is a memoir, and it's my story that began when I was 22, so 30 plus years ago. And I was a college graduate. I had a business degree and a psychology minor, and I was really happy and healthy and normal. I had moved to Seattle with my best friend, and we had a pretty apartment, and I got a promising PR position, and I just really felt ready to launch. But then just one day, suddenly, I mean, you know how these things go. It seems like just one day, my eyes were puffy and I didn't feel quite right. I felt off. So, like you do, I went to the doctor, and I really expected something like you do, medically familiar. So, expected maybe a flu or virus, or I'd take a strep throat, please, just something familiar. I had no idea. I didn't know what to make of it when he said I had kidney damage. That seemed like, what? So the reason that he learned I had kidney damage is because he took a urine sample, and I had protein that showed up in my urine. And your urine really shouldn't have protein in it. So that was a pretty quick sign something was going on there. And so I needed a biopsy to find out what was, cause and extent of this damage. And my parents wanted me to come back to Minneapolis area to get that biopsy because my dad actually knew a nephrologist. He, as a custom home builder, had built a house for a nephrologist who we never expected to need his expertise in nephrology, but there we were. So he did the biopsy, and then I quickly learned from that I had a very long syllabled name, autoimmune kidney condition, which we'll say FSGS for short, because it's actually focal segmental glomerular sclerosis. So that's too much. And it was too much. I learned that was progressive and it was incurable. So at that point, I didn't know how I was going to lead a normal life. I had kidney failure in 6 months. And then the book really, like, that launches the book. So, oh my gosh, here I am, young woman on the verge of having what I thought would be a great life. And now I have to contend with my mortality and something progressive and something super scary. So over these years, I've had 4 kidney transplants. I did not know at that time when I was going to try to launch this forward life that I would be here 30 some years later telling you, Lori, that I have had 4 kidney transplants. I've been on dialysis 3 times. But the best part to tell you is, even though that is the case, I have had an amazingly beautiful life, in large part because of the heroics of helpers that have showed up for me.
Mm.
So I really think this is a family love story, my book. A really nice Amazon reviewer said it was a love story to life. And I've had to learn how to manage my uncertainty and, just harness hope and find joy. And that is what the book is about.
Mhm. How did your life change after your diagnosis from what you knew and that certainty, the life that you had going for you, the future, to
Right.
the complete uncertainty and adaptation overnight?
It changed so much because, like, I write that I first felt like I had been ripped from my rightful place in the world. When you're 22, for most of us, most happy-go-lucky 22-year-olds, I was all of a sudden talking to doctors about my quality of life. And the phrase, just that term, quality of life, that freaked me out. I was like, what do you mean the quality of my life? Why is that even up for discussion? I just thought I was going to have a good one. I didn't know that that was something I had to like parse out with different doctors. So all these things that I thought were going to be givens in my life and all the things that I just wanted without even knowing why I wanted them, it just kind of just wove into the fabric. I really plan on having a great career. I had my business degree. I had a lot of business moxie and intention. And I just had sort of a vision, back to like the vision of apple pies. I had a vision of what I was going to achieve in my life. And I was excited to go out and make things happen. Of course, like I think many people, I envisioned this sort of rom-com, like Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks soulmate kind of scenario, because why not? That'd be fun. And then I really, without thinking about it in great detail, I did sort of think I'm just going to have babies someday, and they'll be pretty little chubby babies that can be on holiday cards every year, and just things that I thought I wanted that really got distilled into like what's going to happen to my life when everything became in jeopardy. So I felt pulled from my rightful place, but it was a very hard time because I was on the verge of, I was independent. I was on the verge of being like my independent self.
Mm.
And then I was living in my parents' home again. I got very, very sick. My mom was just a champion of mom love, and my mom and I are very close, and she was just there every step of the way, which I loved. And she, like, when people read the book, they're going to understand my mom has a really spirited personality, and she just has this great way of alchemizing these kind of horrible moments and making them somehow humorous and uplifting. So the example that I always give is she would come with me to many appointments, and I would ask her like, well, I've got an appointment tomorrow. Do you want to go? And she'd always go, I'd love to. What a riot, And so just the very fact that she was like terming my medical appointments riots was just so in her nature. So, we actually were able to have some good times during hard times, but at the same time, I felt very conflicted that I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be dependent again. And I was really scared about just how to manage my life. And that was so different than it was pre, FSGS diagnosis. I just, like I said, assumed we would sail along.
Mm-hmm. You write in your book a very relatable sentence of feeling like you're losing everything and that you didn't know who you were anymore.
Yes.
What did that mean to you during that time?
It sort of made me feel gutted because I felt like I was losing everything. Like, I just remember I was on a giant dose of prednisone, which is pretty much a nasty drug. Although it's a miracle drug, it helps a lot of people with a lot of things, from poison ivy to asthma to autoimmune things. But it was not working. And so they kept upping the dose. So I was on this monster dose, and it made my hair fall out. And that doesn't always happen with prednisone. Some people that doesn't happen. I just had all the weirdest side effects. So I remember just brushing my hair and seeing all this hair in the brush, thinking, what's up with that? And then I just kept brushing, like thinking, oh, there must just be some loose hair. I'll just keep brushing till the loose hair comes out. And and I I hope this doesn't sound vain to say this, because I think people who get this, and people who haven't had the experience, I'll try to explain it, because I've heard some people say, well, losing the hair, that's like kind of a small facet and that's just a vanity factor. But it was so significant to me. And I think the reason was I felt like it was like the final announcement. Like my hair was coming out. I was going to lose my hair. And I kind of was trying to fake it like I looked reasonably normal, although I was very puffed up from prednisone. But if you didn't know me, you probably wouldn't have noticed. But it just felt like the final announcement, like, this is a sick girl. And so I lost hair. I lost so much weight. And then I lost my sense of self, because who am I? Am I a sick girl who lives with her parents who's not going to have any of the things? So yeah, it was really startling to feel like that, like I was losing my grip in the world.
Mm-hmm. Can you share with us, Jennifer, your experience of being pregnant and having your daughter Liza? Because that was quite the experience as well.
Yes. And that's a good contrast from this terrified 22-year-old, go on dialysis, get a kidney transplant, that I'm married. So like my life is like I'm getting some of the stuff. I had a job and I was married, and managing, just always managing. It's never, I had to come to the realization it's never going to go away. This is something I'm going to have. But so I had my second transplant, and we're just getting through it. And then 7 months after I got that transplant, I never, I don't know if this is too much information, but I can think it's a little bit relevant. I never got my period after my second transplant. So I just was not paying that much attention. I just thought my body hasn't really bounced back. But you're not supposed to get pregnant within the first year after transplant. Not paying attention. I did get pregnant 7 months after. And I was so excited. I was so excited because my friends were all having babies, and I really wanted to be part of that club. And all of a sudden I was. And at first nobody believed me. I did my little home test, and my husband was watching a baseball game, and I'm like, hey, I got something to tell you. And he's kind of more interested in the baseball game than me at that moment. And I was like, and I said this like a question mark because I couldn't believe it. I was like, I think I'm pregnant. And he's like, why do you think that? I said, well, I just took a home test. And he said, oh, they're not very accurate. I'm like, what does he know about home tests? But he didn't give me the reaction I wanted. So then I called my mom, and she's like, oh, you're not pregnant. I'm like, what's wrong with these people? Then I called my friend Dawn, and she's like, well, if it said you're pregnant, you're pregnant. I'm like, thank you. And so yes, I was pregnant. And I went to the doctor and was scared he was going to be mad at me. But I said, I'm scared you're going to be mad, but I'm pregnant. And he said, I'm not mad at you, first of all. He said, I'm going to manage your medications, and you are going to have a baby. And I left that appointment just driving in my car thinking, I'm going to have a baby. I was just so overjoyed that this was happening in my life. And the pregnancy did go really well with my I was glowing from this great happiness of things that were actually working out. But at 28 weeks, I did have some complications. My little Liza was kind of pushing on the tube that connects your kidney to your bladder, which caused a kink. And she was born at 33 weeks, premature. But I tell everybody she was the healthiest little 4-pound bundle. Like I just saw her. She looked like such a little doll. And I was just so excited that this beautiful person that we created her. And I really want to say that my donor, who was a deceased donor, who checked a box at the DMV, who took their act of kindness and forward thinking, not only gave me the gift of life, allowed me to create a life. And that's just a miracle. I mean, and I always got to give a shout out to my daughter, Liza, who's now 26. She's a genius. She's like this brilliant, creative woman. And I'm so glad that through this kind gesture of somebody at the time of their tragedy is now able to pay their life forward and even extend mine and create hers. So it felt like a miracle. It was just a miracle.
Mm-hmm. We have a comment coming in for you, Jennifer. Hello, Judy. Judy Casper says, I love your mom. It is significant and not vain.
Oh, thank you so much, Judy. Thank you. Yes, and I love my mom too. Just an amazing, all-in, full-hearted mom. And I should say, since we're on the topic of her, she actually gave me a kidney for my 3rd transplant. So the miracles continue because for my 1st transplant, they said she wasn't a match. And in all the years between, the criteria for antigen matching had changed. And then they said, this criteria isn't what we thought it was. Let's test again. And she was a match. So Judy, not only did my mom provide all this love and support, but then she actually donated her kidney for my 3rd transplant. So it's, like I said, it's a family love story for sure.
I read that part and I got so emotional. I had to put the book down of like just that love between a mother and a daughter and like the gift of life and that connection, that deeper connection that you had with your mom in that moment. I can't even imagine what that
felt like. I tried really hard to put it into words in the book because it's very hard to describe what that feels like. And I wrote that after the surgeries, I went in to see her and they were giving her morphine and so she was kind of slurring her words. Morphine and my mom didn't get along very well. So, I asked them if they could reduce her morphine level. And, she thanked me for looking out for her. We were just so symbiotic in our looking out for each other. And in the hospital bed, she's a small woman. And I wrote, she looked like such a giant of grace and goodness because that's really what she is.
Mm-hmm. You have experienced 4 transplants so far. Tell us about that and where you are currently right now.
I am so happy to tell you where I currently am because I just celebrated August 25th, my 12th kidney transplant anniversary. And so that's a record. Like that's amazing. And this kidney is indirectly from my husband. So my husband, a little over 12 years ago, he really wanted to donate to me, but we weren't a match. And there had been some, I love all these innovations and improvements in the transplant and kidney community, but he looked into a paired exchange program, which is such a cool program, really a game changer. And I sometimes explain it kind of like a cookie swap, but I needed a kidney and I had someone who wanted to give me his, but we weren't a match. So we went into this pool of people that somebody needs a kidney, but doesn't have a compatible donor. And when you pool everybody together and decide you'll kind of swap around, it really speeds up the process and people get better matches. And it's really, really just kind of remarkable what that has done for people needing transplants. So my husband gave me his kidney indirectly. And what that meant is in the pool, I ended up receiving a kidney from a 25-year-old altruistic donor. So, Lori, the miracles, they keep stacking up because,
Wow.
I mean, not only was my husband a hero, but this 25-year-old altruistic donor who I've never met, I wrote him a letter. My daughter wrote him a letter, but sometimes, there's privacy that people like to keep, and that's completely fine. But he didn't direct it to anybody. So imagine that this 25-year-old, very young person just wanted to do good. And the goodness of his heart allowed me to get a kidney. So I had, right when my book came out, was right about the same time of my 12th kidney transplant anniversary. We had a big party just celebrating life and love and all the things. So I'm doing well right now. My labs are good and I feel good, and I'm just savoring every day that I have with this kidney. It's been wonderful.
Mm-hmm. What are some day-to-day things that you're currently going through that are often unseen?
Oh, well, that's a good question because I do manage a lot of things with my health, and I'm used to it. I take medications, really super important for transplant patients. If you don't take your medications, you will not keep your transplant because your body will know that this is not exactly your kidney. And so you're given immunosuppressant medications that kind of lower your immune system. So everything stays cool in there. The farther out you get from transplant, the lower those doses are. So my doses aren't really super high right now, but I really religiously take medications. And then like during COVID and the pandemic, is really hard for immunosuppressed people. I was really totally kind of on lockdown, but I still do some treatments to keep my kidney going. And the treatment is called plasmapheresis. And not everybody knows that I do that. I mean, I'm out in the world and I'm doing my stuff and I'm feeling really good. And I'm so happy to be a published author with this book. But when I'm managing my schedule, I am managing a lot of appointments in between my book presentations and my nonprofit work. So it's a little invisible to people. But yeah, I do a lot to keep myself healthy with appointments and medications and visits. And another thing about transplant is the medications have side effects. And skin cancer is a really big side effect. Like they just know you're going to have it. And so I'm a frequent flyer at the dermatologist. I'm going tomorrow morning. I'm going to go the next month. I like to say I've got, like platinum status with my dermatologist. I go so much, but so there is a lot of management. And I think that's important to tell people. I'm glad you asked that because this isn't a happily ever after story. And I don't think that happily ever after stories in reality exist that often. And I think that's important for people to know. This is a trying to manage happiness and stay joyful as we go through hard things story. And I think that applies to everybody. I'm not alone in, I like to say I'm probably the only one who's had 4 kidney transplants in a room. I'm never the only one who goes through a lot of challenges in our lives because, hello, that's what it means to be a human. I haven't met a person yet that, people are really like sharing a lot with me, which I feel so privileged about. And I love it when I can talk to people beyond, what's your job? Where do you live? Like, tell me about your kids. And they like pull back the curtain and I hear about what people really go through in their lives. And we all do. It's not just all the glossy Instagram stuff. Like every glossy Instagrammer you could sit down with, and if they wanted to tell you, you would hear a lot of things that they go through. And I think that's something we should all remember because I think it helps us be compassionate when we realize, I'm certainly not the only one who goes through things. And I'm sure like we could spend 2 hours after this and you could tell me all the things and we would relate to so many things. And I just think that it's really eye-opening when you get a spirit of compassion about that's what life is, and we all kind of manage uncertainty together.
Mhm. What about gaining awareness for those who are trying to understand what are some symptoms of FSGS or what are some things to look out for? What would you say?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's like broaden it to kidney disease because there's a lot of different kidney diseases, and 37 million Americans have chronic kidney disease, but like 90% don't know it. So I should say I'm the current board chair of the Minnesota National Kidney Foundation. So I care a lot about this. The two leading causes of kidney disease are diabetes and high blood pressure. So people, if anybody has high blood pressure out there, please talk to your doctor about your blood pressure and manage your blood pressure because it's really hard on your little kidneys with their little nephrons. If there's too much pressure in there, that can hurt your kidneys. Um, Also, diabetics, please ask your doctor to monitor if you have any protein in your urine because when we do like prevention screenings through the National Kidney Foundation, there's a lot of data through the national office where they're seeing that diabetic patients are not being screened early for kidney kidney markers that could hurt their kidneys, proteinuria, high blood pressure, and that there is a lot we can do to slow the progression. So there's a big push at the prevention end. So that's what I encourage everybody. Know your blood pressure, be careful with it. If you have any risks for kidney disease, if you have family history, um, African Americans and Black individuals have a 4 times greater risk. Um, the Latin community has a 1 point almost 5 times greater risk. Native Americans have a higher risk, and anybody over the age of 60 has a higher risk. So if you're in one of the higher risk groups, really pay attention to your numbers and talk to your doctor about if there should be any screening, which the screening is very simple. There's generally 2 tests, a blood test and a urine test. So, and FSGS is a rare disease. That's why I want to broaden it out to the kidney community because a lot of kidney diseases, not the one that I got that was so out of the blue, but many of them the progression can slow and you can preserve your kidney function for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. What is the, can you mention the nonprofit link and we'll put it down below as well?
Absolutely. So the National Kidney Foundation's website link is just kidney.org.
Perfect.
And then since we're talking about this, I do also want to say, I want to talk just really quickly about organ donation because it's a topic that people don't really like to talk about. And I think that there's an ick factor, like, oh, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about my death. And of course you don't. I don't either. But there's been so many creative ways that they're trying to reframe it. And it's really a system of sharing. I mean, I always imagine like if you're on a picnic and you have like a extra sandwich and you see a starving person that could really use your sandwich, but you're just going to throw it away. Of course, you'd probably give them that sandwich. So it's really a system of sharing something you don't need anymore. And New York had a campaign where they were talking about recycle yourself because people like to recycle. But my main point about it is just get information. You know, you can go to donatelife.org and get a lot of information because misinformation can make people make decisions that aren't well informed. And if you do think, yeah, I believe in that, I would like to be a registered organ donor. What we're finding, like here in Minnesota, 56% of people are registered, but 90% of people think it's a good idea. So there's a gap in action. And I just think there's a lot to be said for action. So if you find yourself in that category that, yeah, I do think it's a good thing, but you haven't registered, just take that extra action step, put your kindness into action. And that makes a really big difference.
Mm-hmm. Judy just made a comment as well that she would love to get involved, and she's happy to be here as this has been very inspirational for her today, and she's getting your book. So thank you.
Oh, Judy, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. This is amazing.
And her husband are registered. Awesome, Judy. That's great.
That is so great. The other important thing that we should always say about registration is tell your family how you feel. There's just sometimes when anything happens, family members are comforted to know that, yes, this was my sister's wishes, or, because there's a lot of grief at a time of tragedy, and clarity is really, really a helpful thing for all involved.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned in your book multiple times about kindness. How has kindness and helping hands supported you on your health journey?
So much. I mean, I'm blown away by the power of people helping people. And I can start with what we're talking about. I think it's a very kind act to check a box at the DMV. That is kindness. That is taking like a nice thought that you have and you're putting it into the world. Obviously, living donation is like mind-blowing kindness. But, there's that Mr. Rogers quote that his mom used to tell him, like, in times of trouble, look for the helpers. And I feel so uplifted by helpers. And I think for anybody who goes through a challenge in their life, whether, you lose a loved one, or you're grieving, or you're suffering from some kind of an illness, or just hard times are happening, pay attention to the people who swirl around you. Don't they do that? People swirl around, and we swirl around people that we care about. And I think one of the hardest things sometimes is letting people love you, because it's easy to just go, oh, I can do it. No, thanks. I don't need it. It's hard to ask for help. I always say this when I talk to groups about like asking for a kidney. We at the NKF, we train people, like we break it into steps of how to tell their story. They don't need to ask somebody for a kidney, but I always say it's hard to ask someone to take you to the airport. Can you imagine like how overwhelming that feels? But when people try to help us, it's just let them love you. I think that's a hard thing to do. It's easy to say. I know it's hard to do, but I think it's worthwhile trying that. And then just this kind swirl that you get, like I've seen it on such a grand scale, people donating kidneys, but let's just boil it down. Not everybody's going to go out tomorrow and give a kidney, of course. That's a big deal. But like, what can you do on just like, who could use your phone call that, you tell them, I was just thinking about you. How are you doing? Or who could use the call to say, let's go for a walk. I want to see how you are, or let me buy you a coffee, or who could use you just text them a joke for the day. Like there's so many little ways that we can just reach out to each other. And I think that when we get into this kind of groove of kindness and how important it is, even on the smallest scale, what a better world we live in for all of us and for ourselves. Like when we're suffering from something ourselves, one of the best things I think we can do is be kind to others. It gets us out of ourself a little bit. Like if we start to stew in our juices, that's not good. Good. There's a whole world of people out there that are also going through something, and maybe find a support group and then help somebody in that group. Or, we all have our own little sets of wisdom. And I just encourage people to try to like branch outside of themselves to connect to other people, because kindness and connection are just so important in our ability to just feel joy.
Mm-hmm. What are some ways that you're currently forging your journey to find joy in your life?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many like triggers of joy. I've done some, studied some of the work of Martin Seligman, who is the father of positive psychology. And I love the idea of joy triggers. And one of them, which is kind of a big one, is anticipation. And this makes so much sense, I think, to all of us. Like, so I thought of this because my husband and I are going on a trip with 2 other couples. And I'm so excited about it because I've been really busy with so many things. And it's just this nice little bit of time we're carving out to go to Bald Head Island in North Carolina, which I've never been there. And so I have so much anticipation for this event. And anticipation, we know, is a trigger of joy. So I think when we plan things ahead of time, like what are you going to do for the holidays? Maybe plan something right now that you can really look forward to. That's a good joy boost. Being with people always boosts my joy. Like as a writer, it can be very much like just writing. So when I just like make a plan to go out with girlfriends or go on a date with my husband, I mean, that's an easy thing to do. That brings me joy. Like that's a joy booster. I also love to get new information in my head. I'm like an information person. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts I love and listening to people like you interviewing people who have these enlightening perspectives. Like if I set aside enough time for myself to just get some new good quality information in my head, that brings me joy. And one that I really like, and these are all very simple, you're going to notice, is for my exercise, which I think of kind of as medicine, I dance. I do like dance fitness workouts, and I have so much fun doing those. I mean, it doesn't feel like I'm exercising. I must look crazy because I do these, like I do them on my computer. I pull up these things on my computer, and my dog always looks at me like, not this again. My dog usually, for some reason, every time I start a dance workout, she wants to go outside. It's every single time I'm like, she really doesn't like my dancing. But when I do that, I really feel joyful. It's such a release. So I think maybe not everyone wants to dance around in their family room, but movement. Oh my gosh, what a trigger of joy movement is. So those are some of the things.
We're going to move right into the inner child question segment. Are you ready, Jennifer?
I'm scared, but let's see how it goes.
Number 1, when you were a kid, what were some things that brought you joy at a younger age?
Oh my gosh, I have one that you're going to like. I belonged to the Nancy Drew book club. And do you love this? You're such a Nancy Drew person. I got Nancy Drew books in the mail, and I would look forward to them, and I would get a new one, and I would just go and read it. Yeah, that definitely was joyful.
Okay, so was it you would meet every month and then get like a book in the mail and like talk about it? Like
No, there was no talking. They would just send the books like regularly. The Nancy Drew book club book would come. My dad would go, "You got your new Nancy Drew book?" And then I would just start reading.
So like a subscription kind of package.
Yeah.
Okay, Jennifer. Okay, high five.
Right? We're so connected through Nancy Drew, Lori.
Oh my goodness. What did you love about Nancy Drew?
I love that she was like this smart little mystery solver. Like, how cool was that? I love she had good friends, and they were always there. Mm-hmm. And I think there was a comfort to the books that you would start reading, and it was like they would reintroduce the characters, and like you'd get the same descriptions of the characters. It was just like, it became like a little family in a book. There was just a lot of comfort reading those. How about you?
I love how you mentioned a family in the book, because I very much felt that essence. It just felt like the sense of home and connection in a way I couldn't explain, but it just felt safe and homey.
It really did. I agree with that.
Yeah. Oh man, that's okay. Now I need to go find a Nancy Drew book, and I'll send you one. And then
oh my God, awesome.
Second question for you, Jennifer. What is the oddest food combo that you've liked and tried, or you've just tried?
Okay. I think people thought this was odd. My daughter and I used to make egg white omelets with peanut butter and jelly. Does that sound odd to you?
Okay, now I'm visualizing. Did you put peanut butter and jelly into the egg whites?
No, we would take the egg whites and we would cook them in a pan so they kind of firm up.
Okay.
And then, scoop it out so it's flat, and then do the peanut butter and jelly and fold it over.
I would say that's odd. I have never heard of that before, Jennifer.
Okay, good. So that counts as odd because we thought they were so good. It was almost like a peanut butter and jelly crepe, and then it would kind of get melty in there. But most people would say that sounds disgusting. So you could try it.
I like the fact you brought in a crepe because you put everything in a crepe now. So
I know.
Of course, why not?
And the egg white's kind of fluffy and light. So I don't know. I think the people listening might want to give it a try.
Anyone who wants to try this meal, I'm going to try it. If you try it, send us a picture to Jennifer and I, and we'll hear what your experience was like.
And if you find it disgusting, I'm sorry about that in advance.
Now, what would you call this delightful dish if you had to make a name for it?
Oh, well, I think maybe let's call it peanut butter and jelly souffle.
Ooh.
Now it sounds good, doesn't it?
That tosses it up an entirely different notch.
It's all in the descriptions, right?
Join us for a peanut butter and jelly souffle, everyone.
Yes. You're going to probably see it now coming to menus everywhere.
Jennifer inspired. Yes. Before we end today, Jennifer, can you share with our listeners and viewers what living a creatively abundant life means to you?
Yes. I think when you get into a creative groove and you create something that is shared, like people have said, when you write a book, it's yours when you're writing it, and then it's in the world and it's not yours anymore. But I feel with this sort of creative endeavor that I've taken on with this book project, I feel now so connected to so many people. And so I think that creative abundance is a great way to connect with people on a level that I have never quite experienced in this way before, with so many people that I haven't met before. And then all of a sudden they'll reach out to me and I feel we have this great connection. So yeah, creative abundance is just a way of bringing our energies together in a way that I think is so beautiful.
Yes. Where can our listeners and viewers find you if they have any questions after the show or would like to?
Yes, I love to hear from people. So you can go to my website, which is jennifercramermiller.com, but I'm going to spell Cramer because that has a C in it. So yeah, you see my name right there. But there's no hyphen in the website. So Jennifer, CramerMiller.com. And you can reach out to me through the website with any comments or questions or anything, and I will get that email. And then my book, Incurable Optimist, like Lori said, it just has the cutest cover, you guys. It's got this little lemon with a straw in it, which is perfect. I'm excited about that. But it's available wherever books are sold. And I love it when people read it and tell me what they thought.
We will put the links down below so we can have easy access to connect to Jennifer. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your story here today.
I had so much fun with you today. What a fun time this was. Thank you so much for having me.
Likewise. And from my heart to yours, thank you for sharing, and continue to keep living each day to the fullest. And I'm so grateful that you spent time with us today.
Oh, me too, Lori. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
So welcome. And thank you, everyone who have joined us live and will join on the replay. Remember, as you go about the rest of your week, to find the things that are working for you. You are the creator of your own story. What steps will you take next? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer. Have a
Thank you, Lori. Goodbye, everybody.